The environment is our home. It grounds us, shelters us. It's a recreational space. It feeds us with offerings seasoned with the bitter, sweet, sour, spicy, and salty. It hugs us with the cold, hot and temperate. The environment encompasses all life forms, and its resources sustain us throughout our lifetime and the countless generations after. This is why our efforts to sustain a healthy natural environment is so important, because without it, there is no future. Hi there, I'm Adrian Atkinson, and this is your eco-conscious edition of Jamaica Magazine.
To deal with crime and violence, we must be united. Please cooperate with the security forces. Call 311-119 or the JDF tip line. If you know something and you not talk, you're a part of the problem.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Good day, I'm Theodore Henry, and this is your JIS News for Tuesday, September 27, 2022. The Ministry of Education and Youth is advising school boards and principals to exercise caution in determining the operations of schools over the next few days. The decision to continue online or face-to-face classes will be based on assessment of the institutions following the impact of Tropical Storm Ian and the safety of students and staff. The Met Office says unstable weather conditions associated with Hurricane Ian will linger across the island through to Friday, producing moderate showers and thunderstorms. The Education Ministry is therefore encouraging school administrators to continue using existing communication channels to notify parents, students, and staff on school operations. Schools are also being advised to utilize their best judgment in exercising self-care and safety in all circumstances. Families who were displaced by fire in Olympic Gardens in November 2018 are now benefiting from a free housing solution. On Friday, the Ministry of Local Government, through its Indigent Social Housing Program, handed over the keys to the 12-unit complex along 4th Street in the community. The property was built at a cost of $37 million, with each unit consisting of a kitchenette, living room, bathroom, and bedroom. 9 of the 12 units have been set aside for the fire victims, and the remaining 3 will be distributed by the new social housing program. Prime Minister Andrew Holness, who is Member of Parliament for the area, says the complex is the next phase in the provision of social and indigent housing to Jamaica's vulnerable population.
These houses are not going to be owned individually. You will be able to occupy them on a long lease because they are built in a strata form. The idea, obviously, is that if they outgrow this, their circumstances change and they move out, then they can hand back the keys to us and we will give it to someone else who is in need.
Jamaica Promotions Corporation, JAMPRO, says it continues to stimulate economic development through increased investment and export by supporting investors wishing to do business in Jamaica. Head of the Global Digital Services Unit, Vivian Scully, says for the past several years, Jamaica has been garnering significant attention as an outsourcing destination.
One of the attractiveness that Jamaica presents is significant talent pool, but also complemented by a pro-business government, a pro-business environment, which means there is free movement of investment capital in and out for the investors.
Explaining the role of JAMPRO in supporting investment opportunities for the country, Mr. Scully explained that, among other things, the agency is providing significant strategic support to the sector through development initiatives.
The Global Services Sector Initiative, which I mentioned earlier, provides significant funding for training, marketing, and continued promotions of the sector to investors across the globe, and also in developing the local talent to meet the needs of the companies that are here to ensure their continued growth.
Mr. Scully says the sector is poised to achieve the growth target of 75,000 persons by 2025, with added focus on high-value technology areas. Meanwhile, global outsourcing company Intelsia is projecting a 23% increase in its employees by the end of 2022. The company opened its first Caribbean office in Kingston on Thursday with 608 staff members. That number is expected to increase to 750 by year end. This information was shared by Cluster Director for Intelsia Jamaica, Mireille de Brucker, who was speaking at a JIS think tank on Friday.
The number 1,000 employees is a number that we have out there that easily can be exceeded with the right track and the right strategy on bringing on new our employees. And not just our contact center agents, right? We're talking about support, training, human resources, anything that is needed to really effectively and efficiently operate a contact center of world-class contact center.
The cluster director says the organization is on a fast growth pattern and its most important asset is really signing the right people for the right positions.
We are aware, with the support of JAMPRO, of course, that we will see that ongoing support. I heard about the GSS program and things like that. So this is all going to be about partnership.
256 individuals in the Jamaica National Service Corps, JNSC, have successfully transitioned to the Jamaica Defense Force, JDF. The graduation ceremony took place on Friday following a one-year training which includes the Basic Fitness Standard Test, Community Service, On-the-Job Training, and the Military Swim Test. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of National Security, Courtney Williams, congratulated the soldiers for completing the arduous training.
Undoubtedly, you will play a significant role in advancing public safety and public order while strengthening national defense and security. As Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of National Security, I want to acknowledge the tremendous work that the JDF has been doing to attract unattached youth by fostering personal and professional development.
Since 2017, the JNSC has been the standard mode of enlistment for persons joining the JDF to serve as full-time soldiers. It is structured to provide continual development over the one-year service period and to build a range of life skills, sound character, and versatility. And finally, Jamaicans and visitors to the island can now access secure ground transportation services in real time using the new ride-hailing mobile application Do Get Go. The app, which was officially launched last week with its first feature, dubbed Do Ride, is available on both Android and iOS platforms. While speaking at the recent launch, Transport Minister Audley Shaw says the app marks another step towards a more technologically inclusive and efficient transportation sector in Jamaica.
The hope is that with this super app, there will be greater freedom and power to transform the transportation industry, while simultaneously empowering all Jamaican businesses to access technology for the delivery of their products and services at the same level experienced globally.
The Do Get Go service is being provided through a partnership between technology company Ridium Caribbean and the Jamaica Union of Travelers Association, JUTA, Montego Bay chapter.
Now, eventually, we'll have more people than JUTA on it, but right now, as we're starting out with JUTA drivers. So what will happen is people will be able to actually get on their phone, and it don't matter where they are, they will be able to book a ride, just like Uber. And they'll be able to get the rate, get the fee, see the driver's ratings, and they'll be able to travel anywhere in the country. This is the first step for launching Do Get Go.
And that's it for JIS News today. I'm Theodore Henry. Thanks for watching.
As a nurse, my heart bleed for see the accident victims. Worse when blood and oxygen short. Ease the burden on our hospitals, no man. Please, me a beg you no. Drive safe on the road.
These are the top stories coming out of the office of the Prime Minister.
Prime Minister calls for a war on guns, meets with bilateral partners and business interests, and hands over $37 million indigent housing complex. You're watching Jamaica House Weekly. I'm Anthony Morgan. For the better part of last week, Prime Minister Andrew Holness was on assignment in the United Kingdom and the United States of America. On September 19, Mr. Holness attended the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II in the United Kingdom. He used the visit to meet with King Charles III, who ascended the throne upon his mother's demise. Prime Minister Holness left England Monday for the United States of America, where he participated in the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly. In his wide-ranging address, the Prime Minister called for a war on guns like the one that's been declared against drugs.
Jamaica does not manufacture guns, but our population suffers from the effects of widely available guns. The countries that manufacture weapons that are available to the public must implement stronger measures to ensure that those weapons do not end up on the streets and in the hands of people for whom they were not intended. In the same way that there is a concern about illegal drugs on the streets of the rich countries, there must be concern about guns on the streets of developing countries like Jamaica.
Mr. Holness also called on countries who benefited from the Atlantic slave trade to provide reparations to people of African descent. While acknowledging the sensitivity of the issue, the Prime Minister says bold steps must be taken to right the wrong.
The world cannot turn a blind eye to the systemic imbalances which persist after centuries of exploitation. If our moral standards today, on which we claim a higher civilization, acknowledges that actions in the past, which generated wealth for some by depriving others of their freedom, were wrong, then that same moral standard must lead those who benefited from the wrongs of the past and claim a higher civilization today to repair that which their morality now acknowledges to be an injustice.
In the meantime, Prime Minister Holness expressed hope that the high-level panel developing the Multidimensional Vulnerability Index will be fast-tracked. Once completed, the index will take into consideration the susceptibility of small island developing states like Jamaica to economic shocks as a prerequisite to accessing development financing. Mr. Holness stated Jamaica's belief that a comprehensive, targeted approach to financing development was needed. And ahead of the November 6 to 18 United Nations Conference on Climate Change in Egypt, the Prime Minister made an impassioned plea for nations to reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
We call on all countries to meet their commitments and contributions to climate targets. And we call on the developed world to increase their commitments and ambitions in climate financing, particularly for adaptation and loss and damage.
Mr. Holness proposed that February 17 be observed annually as Global Tourism Resilience Day. He also discussed access to technology and education, assistance to Haiti, the use of ocean and marine resources, as well as the ongoing war between Russia and the Ukraine. And while in New York, the Prime Minister held bilateral talks with Borut Pahor, the President of Slovenia. He also discussed deepening Jamaica-Kenya relations with the country's elected President William Ruto. Meanwhile, Mr. Holness talked development with the President of the Inter-American Development Bank. The Prime Minister also held talks with representatives from Exact Capital, Resort World and Pegasus Capital. Back on the island Friday, Prime Minister Holness ventured to 4th Street in Olympic Gardens, where he handed over a $37 million 12-unit indigent housing complex to residents. 9 of the 12 one-bedroom studio apartments have been set aside for victims of a 2018 fire which impacted 30 families in Bell Rock in the community. The remaining units will be distributed by the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development.
These are units that the persons will be able to occupy. We have not made any arrangements for them to pay rent, but they will basically have a peppercorn long-term lease. The idea, obviously, is that if they outgrow this, their circumstances change and they move out, then they can hand back the keys to us. and we will give it to someone else who is in need. So this is another element of our social housing program.
And that's it for Jamaica House Weekly. Be sure to join us next time for more news stories coming out of the Office of the Prime Minister.
Amid the uncertainties that have characterized the current post-COVID-19 period, an unprecedented opportunity has been presented for us to rethink strategies for building the resilience of Jamaica's tourism industry. The Ministry of Tourism has always advocated for a sector that is economically sustainable, socially inclusive, and environmentally friendly. However, the COVID-19 crisis has accelerated our commitment to rethinking tourism to maximize its contribution to the social and economic well-being of the nation and its citizens. I am therefore particularly pleased to be joining the United Nations World Tourism Organization, UNWTO, and the global community in celebrating the significance of World Tourism Day, which is being observed on September 27th under the theme Rethinking Tourism. According to the UNWTO, this means putting people and planet first and bringing everyone from governments and businesses to local communities together around a shared vision for a more sustainable, inclusive, and resilient sector. This year's World Tourism Day theme will also guide Jamaica's activities for Tourism Awareness Week, which runs from September 25 to October 1, as we continue to raise awareness of the importance of tourism and its social, cultural, political, and economic value. These include daily advertorials highlighting initiatives of the Ministry of Tourism and its public bodies that foster innovation in tourism, a church service, the virtual Edmund Bartlett Lecture Series, a Style Jamaica runway show, a Tourism Opportunities Visionary Symposium, a youth forum, a special virtual knowledge forum, the official launch of the Innovation-Based Tourism Incubator, speaking engagements at schools across Jamaica, a tourism stakeholder engagement activity, a youth poster competition, among other engaging activities. Together with our committed tourism partners, we are charting an effective course towards sustainable recovery that is enabling the tourism industry to rebound in a big way. This is imperative because Jamaica's tourism industry is a key source of income, employment, and wealth for the country. The industry generates direct employment for 175,000 Jamaicans and indirect employment for over 354,000 Jamaicans, including hotel workers, farmers, craft vendors, entertainers, and transportation operators. Also, it is the single largest contributor to GDP, the main source of foreign exchange revenue, and one of the country's main sources of exports. Overall, then, the tourism sector has grown by 36% over the past 30 years against total economic growth of 10%. The rethinking of Jamaica's tourism is being guided by our Blue Ocean strategy, which is playing a leading role in revitalizing Jamaica's tourism industry. It calls for the creation of business models that depart from the traditional ones based on competition and standardization. Using the key premises of this framework, we have shifted our strategic focus to one of enhanced value creation through product differentiation and diversification. We're opening up new markets and creating new demand in uncontested market spaces instead of going down the well-trodden path and competing in saturated markets. What does this mean, therefore, on the ground? We are harnessing our culture and heritage to tell the authentic Jamaican story, creating experiences that will get visitors out of the hotels and into our communities, training and building the capacity of our people to respond to an ever-evolving industry, renewing our focus on destination assurance, and providing technical and financial support for the small and medium tourism enterprises, the SMTEs, which contribute invaluably to the authenticity and totality of the visitor experience. As we observe Tourism Awareness Week, the sector continues its record-breaking performance. This is underscored by the Planning Institute of Jamaica's PIOJ April to June 2022 quarterly report, which indicates that tourism continues to drive Jamaica's post-COVID-19 economic recovery. The economy grew by 5.7% during the quarter, compared with the same period in 2021, with the tourism and hospitality sector contributing substantially. According to the PIOJ, the real value added for hotels and restaurants grew by an estimated 55.4%, reflecting a sharp increase in visitor arrivals from all main source markets. In addition, length of stay is back to the 2019 levels of 7.9 nights, while more importantly, the average spend per visitor has increased from US $168 per night to US $182 per person per night. This is a clear indication of the resilience of our tourism sector. This significant accomplishment is due to the hard work and perseverance of my ministry and its public bodies, our tourism workers and partners, and the people of Jamaica. Thank you for your continued commitment to this important sector. Tourism success would not be possible without you. I invite you to share in our special activities across all traditional and digital platforms throughout the entire week. And in closing, I extend my deepest gratitude to the organizing team, which includes representatives from the ministry and its public bodies, as well as our tourism stakeholder groups, for what I'm sure will be a very engaging and productive week. Thank you, and God bless you all.
As part of the world's ecosystems, wildlife provides balance and stability to nature's processes. The goal of wildlife conservation is to ensure the survival of these species and to educate people on living sustainably with other species. National Geographic. Jamaica is a part of the global community, making an effort to conserve and educate persons about wildlife and wildlife preservation. Here's more.
Bow your ears for a bit. Hear the trees wailing or the leaves grabbing your unwanted carbon dioxide, insects making a shrilling sound, and the tuneful noise of some unnamed and rarely seen creature reverberating within the bushes. Now open your eyes a bit wider. Watch ants band together in groups of hundreds, or wasps gathering wood shavings to build their next home, and birds preparing some sweet meal for your liking. All these make up the wildlife, those organisms that grow or live wild in any area.
Wildlife conservation is an attempt to preserve either a species or a population of a particular species, and by doing so, you in effect are also preserving its habitat because the species doesn't exist on its own. And there are different types of conservation. You have what they call in situ conservation, which is conservation within its natural habitat, and that is usually the aim of all most, if not all, conservation efforts. And you have ex situ conservation, where you're trying to preserve the animals in a not so natural state, for example, in a zoo or in a controlled park area. And again, the goal is usually when their natural habitat is improved or protected in some way, then they try to repatriate those species back into their natural habitat.
And preserving the wildlife should be an important part of the human agenda. Here's why. It promotes the continuation of native plant species. Small animals like bees, butterflies, and our very own doctor bird play an important role in food production. Conserving these animals, protecting these animals, means that we are ultimately helping in pollination. It increases medicinal value. Plants are a major source of medication, but so too are animals. Take, for example, how research shows that the venom from the cobra can be used as an ingredient in making the medications for leprosy, or how lobsters can be used as antifungals. It's a way to preserve our heritage. Some plants and animals are unique to specific countries, so conserving those wildlife means conserving those traditional aspects of our culture, things like the blue maho plant or the yellow pui tree of Jamaica, and even the lions and leopards of Africa. It enhances food security by protecting natural habitats from degradation and forests against deforestation. The availability of a variety of food products increases.
Everyone needs to play a part. We have to understand that preserving the wildlife, it's not necessarily just for how it can benefit us, but we're also looking at the future generations. And so each person needs to be a little bit more responsible in what they're doing, where they dispose of garbage, cutting off areas and so forth. Understand the law. The Wildlife Protection Act, for example, one basic feature of it is that all native birds are protected. Don't catch the birds. We have hunting season, that is something that is actually regulated. But besides that, we try to encourage persons not to take matters into their own hands at times. Sometimes we have some species that we're trying to protect that are inherently can be a dangerous species, like a crocodile, for example. We encourage persons not to go out and try to catch those animals, but to call NEPA.
Here's your chance to do your part to conserve the wildlife.
And this is where we close today's show, but do remember to reduce, reuse, and recycle. For more news and features, log on to our website, jis.gov.jm. The production team thanks you for your continued viewership. And until next time, I'm Adrian Atkinson. Do take care.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.